Black Mirror, Season 3, Episode 4. San Junipero. Welcome back to another Floppyleggs YouTube video. We're on Episode 4 of Season 3. We're flying through it, and we're on San Junipero. If you don't know, this is on my top 10 Black Mirror episodes of all time, but I've rewatched it. Where does it land? Wait till the end of the episode to see what I rank it out of 10. We're going to go through, of course, the story, the concept, the characters, and the twist. Let's get into it. Spoiler warning ahead. Starting off with the story, of course, we follow Yorkie as she is, we find out, visiting. She's a tourist within San Junipero. And to us in that moment in time, it's just a beachside town. It's a party town. And she's a little bit awkward, a little bit, she seems a little bit not used to the surroundings. She's a bit tentative, but she's a tourist, so she's new to the town, so we assume it's that. She bumps into Kelly, who's trying to avoid a guy that she's clearly hooked up with in the past, and it was supposed to just be a fling, but he wants more from her, She's trying to avoid him a lot, and that plays down the line as well. They get talking to each other. They go to the bar. They order a JD and Coke, but they don't pay for it. That was the first alarm bell. What's going on here? They didn't pay for that. Yorkie didn't want a JD and Coke. She doesn't drink, maybe. But she got it for her anyway. And then they get dancing. She feels very uncomfortable, Yorkie, and she flees the dance floor. She runs away. She puts her foot out into the rain and things like that. And when I talk about the twist later down the line, then I will really get into this. But she's standing outside, then Kelly goes over to her, and then Kelly makes a move on her, very forward, very early on, and she feels not comfortable. She says she's married and things like that, so she's not comfortable to do anything. So she leaves, but she comes back the next day. She's dressing up in all these different outfits. She's trying to look better than what she looked like because Kelly called out her fashion. She does find her, and long story short, she just says, "Show me how." Basically saying, "Let's get back to yours and show me how to do certain bits." They end up doing certain bits. And then we find out that Yorkie's never, ever, she's never had that before. And Kelly's shocked. Kelly tells us about her previous husband, who's not around. He didn't visit the town. Again, very confusing. What does that mean? What do you mean by that? Visit this town. After this wonderful night they shared together, Yorkie is, it's fair to say, maybe infatuated with Kelly quite a bit. And that's what happened with the guy previously that she was trying to avoid. So she goes to try and find her again. She enters the same area, the same club that has been every single time, goes to the bartender. The bartender says, "Check out that other place." Yeah, that's where she might be as well. So she goes to this other place, and it's like a weird, everyone's doing freaky stuff. There's cage fights, there's people in chains, there's all this random stuff going on. This is a very dark little area here. And then she leaves. She leaves that, she doesn't find her, but she bumps into the guy that Kelly was running away from and trying to avoid, and he says, "Try different eras." What do you mean? What do you mean by that? Try different eras. That's crazy. So we see, the 1 week later, because we learn that at midnight every night they have to leave San Junipero. It ends their time there. We don't know why at this point. And then 1 week later, they come back every Saturday, I believe. And 1 week later. Every 1 week later, though, was very interesting. It's subtle things. It changed the font. The font changed as we progressed through these different eras. Her style changed. The music and the club setting changed. She goes to the 80s, the 90s. And then the noughties, when the best people alive were born. Yeah, the best era. She ends up finding her in the noughties, and she just calls her out. She says, "Why have you done that?" And Kelly's very adamant, saying, "I don't owe you anything. I don't know you." It seems like Kelly's just very much she's just an F-boy. You know what I mean? She's just going through the people. She's there for a short period of time, she's saying, so she's just trying to have fun. And later down the line, we work out what that really means. So Yorkie is devastated, but then Yorkie goes to the top of the cinema. She sits on the roof, and then Kelly comes over and talks to her. And then another thing that we pick up, she says, "How many people do you think here are dead?" Boom, boom, boom. What do you mean? Bearing in mind, I've watched this for a second time, so I was picking up these things knowing what they're referring to, but it's just so interesting how they give those references. We basically find out that Kelly wasn't looking for anything serious because she's only here for a short period of time. And I'm gonna fast forward a little bit. She ends up back at Kelly's house, and they've done bits again, but they're talking outside. And then this is where it gets really interesting. She says, "How long have you got left?" And she says, "They told me I've got cancer all in the body. They told me I've got 3 months left to live." "Where are you based?" "I'm in Colorado. You're in California." Whatever. They're in these places and locations, and she says, that's a stone's throw away. I can get to you tomorrow. And we're like, "What? You're with each other? What?" And then bang, we see the real Kelly, who's an elderly woman, being assisted to just walk down the stairs. A complete polar opposite to what we've been seeing with this younger version of herself in San Junipero. She goes to the place where Yorkie is, and we find out about Yorkie. And this, I'm going to be honest with you guys, I remember when I first watched it, this took me aback a bit, but this time watching it again, it really got me emotional. Like it's I think this whole sequence, when you realize who they actually are, of course I already knew that going into it, but you realize who they are and you find out Yorkie's torment for her life kind of thing, and what she went through there. And she finds out that Greg, who she's going to be marrying, she never was married, and then she found out that she was going to marry. He's just the medic. He's a nurse. He works at this hospital, this self-assisted living thing. And he's doing her a favor because she wants to be euthanized and fully go full-time in San Junipero, upload herself to the cloud, as Kelly said. And he wants to help her do that because her family cut her off because she was 21, came out as a lesbian to a family who were very religious, and they shunned her and kicked her out. She drove off a cliff and ended up being paralyzed for 40 years of her life. So the way that we see her there is how she's been living for 40 years. So it just makes the idea of San Junipero so much more beautiful. And then we see Kelly asked to be enter San Junipero with her, and she says, "I'll marry you." Because they've made a connection, and it makes it a little bit something more than just what Greg is. Like, Greg's just doing it for a favor kind of thing. She allows her to be euthanized, and then Kelly enters. Well, she leaves, and Kelly struggles to get up the stairs, like things like that. Just making it really clear of like where Kelly's at. Like, she starts wheezing, her coughs become a little bit worse, and you know, we can tell that she's not far off from the end as well. She enters the San Junipero where Yorkie's been there all day, with her toes in the sand, and you know, things like that really hit you more because you realize that she has been paralyzed for 40 years, and she's not been able to do that. So those subtle things that we all take for granted, but those subtle things that she's doing have so much more meaning to her than anyone else. And that's like, and we see that when Kelly and her are talking near the end, when she's like dancing and kicking the sand and, you know, feeling things, running around, like those things are so taken for granted by the common person, and she's relishing it and enjoying it in its entirety. Kelly turns up with the wedding dress. They get like instantly changed because now she's like in this world. It's like being in GTA, you know, just change outfit like that, bang. And then they go up to the hilltop, and we see the big argument. Okay, this is something really interesting in the story because we don't really know about Kelly and Kelly's past and Kelly's husband, and you know, we just know that he didn't choose to enter San Junipero. You could imagine that maybe was a religious choice or someone that didn't believe in entering and going into the cloud or whatever. But we find out the real reason why that happened, and she's quite angry at Yorkie for this, and says that she lost her daughter when she was 39 or whatever it was, and he didn't feel like it was right to go into this cloud, into San Junipero, when she didn't get that option. I don't know, whatever you believe in an afterlife and things like that, I personally have come to the thought that, you know, same as before birth, there's nothing. So San Junipero allows you to carry on something that isn't there. That's my belief. Of course, if you've got your own beliefs, then of course, you know, you have those as well. But that's how I see it. And in that world, well, Kelly says it. Kelly says there could be nothing. They might have just done that to be with each other, but there's nothing. And if it's wrong for her to then have that life without them, when he made that sacrifice of not going into San Junipero, it's really tough. It's really tough. They get into a big argument. Kelly leaves and she drives. She drives at the speeds that she's never driven before. She goes to the end of the road. She goes to the end of the road, crashes into this barrier, flies out the car. She's seemingly dead. Okay. And in this moment, I had to really think about this and what this meant. Okay. And you might have got it already, but let me just say, so she's driving to the physical end of the road, but it's a metaphorical end of the road of her life. She's at the end of the road and she's driving full pelt at it. And of course she flies out and she seemingly dies, but she's in San Junipero, where you can't die in San Junipero unless you choose to physically like be removed from the cloud and actually die. So she's flying out the car. She's seemingly dead. She wakes up and the first thing she sees is Yorkie. And I think in that moment she realizes, like, she's happy to wake up and be alive. Like she's had that realization that I'm not dead. Oh, and then she sees Yorkie and she realizes this is her. This is someone that she has now. Like this is a new life. So like in that moment she was ready to say goodbye. Like she was ready to drive to the end of the road and you know, be with her late husband and her late daughter. She wanted to do that, but then when she woke up, she realized probably in that moment that she wanted to be alive. That's who she wants to, where she wants to be. And then of course she opts to be euthanized and end up in San Junipero full time with Yorkie. And we see the physical representation of what San Junipero is with the machine plugging in the new person. And what I just love about it is like this episode, the story. I think there's always that message underneath. Like you hear that Kelly in their first conversation after they slept together, her conversation about how she's bi. I think she's suppressed, but the way that she's talking about how she had an attraction to a co-worker, attraction to this person, this girl, this woman, I think she suppressed a lot of those feelings. Of course, she was married, but she suppressed a lot of them and never acted on them before her marriage, maybe, because of the time era. And I feel like, of course, the Yorkie situation is an even more extreme and obvious version of that, of like she wasn't able to act upon her true self because of the time period. However, now in this new life, you know, in this new world, she can start fresh Yorkie, and she can live the life that she's always wanted to live. And then the extreme version is she could never do it because of how she was paralyzed for her life. Just a brilliant, beautiful, like, I think that's the word. There's no other way to put this episode but beautiful. It visually is stunning, but the story itself, the emotion, everything within it is just a beautiful story. Moving over to the concept, of course, this concept I think is one of my favorites in all of Black Mirror. Probably because, like, I'm not fearful per se of death, but this is a technology that I long for. I would love this technology. I would love it. The idea to, you know, she speaks about it, Kelly, when she's in her true form, like her older self, and she talks about it, it's like it's 5 hours of just like therapy, of like, you know, memories, nostalgia, exploring this world. It's unreal, the idea of it. And I think it's quite not an obvious idea, but I don't think it's like this isn't the craziest Black Mirror idea, because I feel like a lot of people talk about the afterlife and have theories and what they would want and and this is just a version of it that, you know, is plausible. I don't know, man. Give me 100 years, who knows where we're at with technology and things like that. This doesn't seem unfathomable, especially because of the want for it. You know, a lot of people in the world would want something like this. But yeah, just the idea and the concept. I think the concept is made even better, as I said, by knowing Yorkie's past and Yorkie's life in the real world. I think that knowing that and how San Junipero can be a world where she can be who she truly is, but actually be full-bodied again and able to run and frolic and touch the sand with her toes and, you know, go into the water and yada yada yada. Like, it's the idea that San Junipero could be something more than just this afterlife sort of simulator. It could be an option for people that are paralyzed or people aren't able to be free moving and things like that, to have that time. Of course, they mentioned that they can't be on it all the time unless they fully upload to it. If they're on it for too long, that's why they only have like a mandated 5 hours. Because if they're in it for too long, they'll get back to the real world and have hallucinations. They disassociate to their true self because they'd want to be in this world unless you're dead and you fully upload to it. And finally, on the concept, I just really love the fact that they could teleport to different eras. Like, that just made me feel like very gamified in that sense, that they could just teleport to these different time frames. And I just loved that when they got to these different eras, like the different style of TV in the shop, or what was on the cinema, what was the blockbuster of that month or whatever, like the idea of it all playing out that way is just, it was just so cool. These might be some of my favorite characters in all of Black Mirror. I really love these two characters, and I don't remember loving them as much as I did watching it back, because you see Kelly, she's quite, you know, promiscuous, she's adventurous, she's going around, she wants to sleep with this person, be with that person, she wants as many emotions and feelings as possible, and in that moment you just think she's one of those party girls kind of thing. But then when you realize that she's got 3 months left to live, she doesn't want to form another attachment because of the pain that she's been feeling about losing her late husband. She doesn't want to form that love again because, you know, the grief that she's felt because of it. And then she wants to have as much fun before she officially passes, because she, in her head, isn't going to stay in San Junipero. She's going to pass naturally and die. And then she meets Yorkie, and she just, yeah, it changes her opinion. You could say it was a bit quick to change her opinion, but I think that moment of driving off the end of the road is so metaphorically pivotal. You know, she's driving to the end of the road like her life has ended. And she wakes up in San Junipero with Yorkie. It's like her new life has started. And Yorkie, I think, is, you know, you see her at the beginning, as I mentioned, she's a little bit awkward. She hasn't had a JD and Coke. She doesn't really drink alcohol. All these things add up. Like, she doesn't dance on the dance floor. She's maybe never had a relationship or never slept with anyone. All these things. And then you find out at 21 what happened to her in the way that happened to her. Like, I genuinely hate stories like that. Like, because that is true. There are people and there are families in the world that will react that way to someone, their own daughter, their own kid. They will react that way because of who they love. And I'm not going to go into all of that, but that just is sickening. And then for it to play out where she wanted to take her own life, because that's what she did. She drove off a cliff. And then she didn't even manage to, like, she ended up in this way. Her family don't come and see her. Big up Greg as a character, by the way. He didn't have to do what he did, but you know, I think that just showed like people like nurses, medics, doctors, all these people in the health services and stuff. They are fantastic in what they do, and he just kind of symbolizes that. Even Kelly's helper, you know, big up them as characters as well, because they just represent so much more than just what they are in that. And the idea of all the people in this world, now that we know that they're either in the latter stages of their life or past, you know, when you look at the scary club that she had to go to find Kelly, and we see all these people expressing themselves in such weird and manic ways, it's like people have got like this second life where they can just be like, yeah, I'm gonna be mental. I don't care what people think. I'm gonna be in a cage. I want a cage fight. I want to have a snake around my neck. Whatever. Like, you know what I mean? They're exploring themselves to the fullest degree that they wouldn't ever have done in real life, which is what San Junipero offers them in this new life. Or you could look at it another way, in a darker way, where like they are a bit depressed that they are dead, so they've just like gone crazy with it. But I think it's more of the former rather than the latter. Of course, the twist as a whole, I realize in these videos that the story is so intertwined with the twist as the show goes on that I end up talking about the twist so early. But the twist is, of course, I think the twist is that Kelly decides to stay, okay? The twist is that San Junipero is an afterlife and Kelly decides to stay rather than go. And we've spoken about it quite a lot here. And I think the idea that they were giving us subtle hints throughout the beginning of the episode. So like rewatching this, genuinely, I don't know if it's because I've watched White Bear maybe 3 times rather than 2. I haven't watched San Junipero again since I first watched it, I don't think. Watching this again was one of the best rewatches. Same with Shut Up and Dance, same with Playtest, same with Nosedive. Everything in season 3 has been so beautiful to rewatch because it's so much better than I remember it. And I think it is maybe just, you could argue, better writing. They've had better writing as time goes on, because they've allowed it. They know that people were going to rewatch this maybe, and they allow you to have those subtle things that you pick up on. And I think there was actually, as I said, multiple twists in this, or like multiple revelations. You know, of course, San Junipero being an afterlife, of course, and then of course Yorkie's truth, and then Kelly's truth, and then Kelly's decision. There's so many things that you go like, wow, like, yeah. And I just want to lastly say, just what a beautiful setting to have your afterlife in. Whatever person, like production person, found that did the recce and found this location, it just, like, what a beautiful, like, symbolized afterlife. Like, what a beautiful place to be an afterlife. And I genuinely just want this to be a thing. I really do. I was going to do a top 10 Black Mirror episodes that I think will be real. Top 10 Black Mirror episodes that won't have a sequel. I was going to do all of these. Let me know if you want that in the comments down below. I'm very happy to do it. I have found that a lot of you do just like the Black Mirror videos. I do other videos as well, and I will continue to do that. At the end of the month, I'm actually going to do a lot of Rick and Morty videos as that new season comes out. But yeah, if you want those top 10 Black Mirror videos, let me know and I can work on them as well. But this is a technology that I desperately would love. And I'm saying that as a 25-year-old. So I can only imagine, you know, what people watching this maybe in the latter stages of their life, you know, will feel watching this episode. That time of the video where I tell you where I rank it out of 10. I can reveal I rate this episode a 9.5 out of 10. You might think I'm a little bit biased to season 3 at this point, but you can't. The thing about me, if you were to challenge me on season 3, if you were to talk to me, be like, what are you on about? I would have a rebuttal for you. I would have reasons to say why this episode is better. Like, I'm not just doing it blindly out of nostalgia of when I watched it when I was 16. I enjoy it more now, watching it again. Season 3 has been incredible. Like, I think this was the season where I realized Black Mirror is goated. Like, season 1 and 2 were great. Season 2 had some great episodes. Season 3, though, we've got heaters. Look at the table. Look at the top of the table. It is season 3 galore. Let me know if you agree in the comments down below. I just can't not rate it. It's just beautiful. The message, the story, the concept, the characters, the twist. That's literally what I just done. What I done when I tried to write 9.5, I was like, is the story good? The story's fantastic. Is the characters are some of the best. The concept, I love this fucking concept like more than ever. The twist of it revealing that it's this when I first watched it was wow. So yeah, that's my ranking. Let me know in the comments down below what you rate it out of 10. I've been Floppyleggs. Make sure you subscribe, and I'll see ya when I see ya.